4.
Asher, good morning.
Good morning, Rev Peretz. How are you in San Francisco?
I am fine, thank you. Even though you're not in the East Coast, you should reveal where you really are.
I'm in beautiful Scottsdale with just the perfect weather. Thank God. I feel like I'm in the desert, actually, where we're gonna find Bnei Yisrael and Balaam and Balak and the ass. So I feel I'm in the right zone.
Okay. So the way we kind of laid this out is that we're going to start with the story, the entrapments of Balaam, Balak, and the ass from the book of Numbers. We're going to put some text on the screen. We're going to read from the text, and we're also going to basically conduct a friendly argument. That's basically where we are, and it's kind of based on how to read this text. And we've actually created a little chart. The option here is the classic options. So here we go. We're going to see if this works just fine. So this is us. This is good. And we're going to be looking at the 4 different ways that we classically look at text. We're going to actually pick maybe 2 of them between us, but basically this is Pardes. So we are looking at the story of Balak and Balaam. That's Numbers chapters 22. It's called the Entrapments because we have this. We're going to look at who's being trapped, and we have a little bit of a machloka between us, between Asher and myself. Maybe not, or maybe so. Maybe resolved by Rashi. We'll see. But back to Pardes. So Pardes is this beautiful term. It comes from the orchard, the garden. It's Pei Reish Dalet Samech. If you are really versed in this, it's really a courtesy to anyone dialing in just to explain what we're doing here. So it's an acronym for peshat, remez, drash, and sod. Peshat meaning the simple or literal. Oops, I lost it there. There we go. We're back. Peshat meaning the plain meaning, literally, it is what it is. Remez, hints, deep meaning. Darash, what we pull out of it to inquire, to seek. That's where we get the word midrash. And sod, the hidden meaning. I'm going to be looking at the peshat. I'm going to be looking at is what it is. I look at this text as a story of entrapments. Asher is bearing the burden of the entire rabbinic tradition, as he should. And he's going to bring Chazal to the discussion.
And Rav Peretz, I would say that it's an important thing to note, and that is the drash. Even though sometimes it gets contrasted with pshat, Rashi really revolutionized the idea that sometimes the most maybe meaningful meaning, the most relevant meaning, the meaning closest to the truth in some ways, at least the truth for us, can be the drash. So even though it feels like it's, what are we playing games with the text? What are we stretching things? No, this can really be the direct meaning that resonates with us. It's very difficult to talk about what is the correct meaning of a verse, what is the true meaning of a verse, especially when you have the sense of this is divine tradition, this is an eternal and tradition, deep and everything. So we're trying to get as close as we can to the truth, and pshat really speaks in that direction, but sometimes it's the drash, and I will argue in that way, it's the drash that really gets us closer maybe to a resonant, relevant understanding of the text.
We'll see. Okay, that's a great start. You should consider running a yeshiva. This would actually be good for you. That's my peshat from that opening statement. All right, so we're gonna look at this first text, and you should be able to see chapter 22. And this is, by the way, no, at Bamidbar it doesn't say Balak is trapped. That's me. I put that on. And the people of Israel set forward and camped in the plains of Moab on this side of the Jordan by Jericho. This is one of the episodes in. Yes, sir.
Yes. No, go in, Peretz. Let me hear what you have to say. I'm excited.
This is one of the episodes that if Moshe Rabbeinu was given a Bible quiz, he may not know this story. That's just one way of framing it. It all happens stage left. And this is what I thought was the first entrapment, that Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was very afraid of the people because they were many, and Moab was distressed because the people of Israel. So you have a entrapment by fear. There's no conversation, there's no dialogue. I am a student of Rosenzweig and Buber. There's no talking. There's no I, thou. There's only I, and I am frightened. So what's the next text? And Moab said to the elders.
Peretz.
Yes, sir.
So I think it is a fascinating idea that in some ways, this king of Balak is scared of the Jewish people, and especially for the rabbis of the Midrash, this is after the destruction of the temple, or around that point of view. It's so difficult to comprehend this idea of a people being afraid of the Jewish people, of the threat of the Israelites. And yet, so interesting that today, with a powerful state of Israel, thank God, it becomes very relevant again. It's something to think about. And I think that's the rabbis were in some ways, were people of their times, but in some ways had this very long-term vision, because I think, as we'll see, the rabbis were sort of trying to understand what it would be like to be this powerful nation and to have this nation of Moab and this king be afraid of the Israelites, of the Jewish people.
All right, we'll see the text reads. And Moab said to the elders, now shall this company lick up all who are around us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. I was actually listening to Rabbi Steinsaltz earlier this morning talking about that the Bible gives us stories and images. So this is a great image. For Rabbi Steinsaltz, who loves animals, this is actually one of the inspirations of coming to this story. Rabbi Steinsaltz loves animals, loves what we can learn from them. So I guess we should one step backwards, Asher. We should dedicate our learning together to our teacher, David Hartman, and our teacher, Reb Steinsaltz. Hartman wasn't that crazy about animals because there's nothing he could say to them, but Steinsaltz loves them. So we're back to this wonderful metaphor, as the ox licks up the grass of the field, and Balak, the son of Zippor, was the king of the Moabites at that time. This is the same.
Peretz, in some ways, I think, when we, the idea of entrapment, as you really will develop it, it's interesting. You happen to be the king of Moab at a certain time, and the rabbis, again, in the Midrash, talk about how it happened. There was a lot of intrigue, and he found his way to be ruling Moab. According to the Midrash, again, this is outside of the text, he didn't even come from Moab, but it's interesting. Is this sometimes we can see something as an opportunity. Wow, I get the opportunity to be king of Moab at this time. On the other hand, this is a scary time to be king of Moab. I wonder whether Balak was excited to be king of Moab at this time or not. All the peshat, all the words of the text tell us is he happened to be king of Moab at this time. We got it, but it gets our imagination, our midrashic imaginations running.
Well, I mean, actually, looking at the peshat of the text we just looked at, it does says all of Moab was afraid. So there actually are three parties involved. This is, if we look at the text at a plain level and not the kind of pediatric retelling of the story, there is one party, the frightened crowd, the mob of Moab. That's not Midrash. That's just Moab was afraid. And then they have this other party called Balak, who's the king of the Moabites. Doesn't really mean he's a Moabite himself. So the Midrash is inspired by the plain reading of the text. This is more than we can handle at this moment, but it's really fascinating. Maybe that's why Balak, maybe, I'll give this to you, maybe it's why the rabbis are actually more sympathetic to Balak than to Balaam. Maybe they see him as a leader of an angry congregation that's always afraid. Now, at this moment, every rabbi listening to this webcast turned off their computer in pain. But be that the case, this could be the source of their sympathy. So we'll move on a bit with the text. I'm going to try to find it again. It's right. Here we go.
And Peretz, I can't resist. Right before you read this passage, that leadership perhaps could be about how do we react to the fear that is around us? How do we resist that fear? Especially, well, it's interesting. In some ways, the Israelites were commanded not to, or will be commanded, not to attack the Moabites, not to conquer them. So in some ways, we could say that, maybe Balak should have stood up as a leader and said, I know as you said, my congregation is afraid, but we have to understand the Israelites better. On the other hand, as you alluded to, our rabbis are sympathetic to Balak. He's not excluded from the world to come, as many others are, some others are. And also, the rabbis say that even though the Israelites are told later on actually in the previous portion in Chukat, not to harm the Moabites, not to conquer them, they are allowed to harass them and to bother them and to cause them trouble. So again, our rabbis are stepping in with a somewhat sympathetic view of Balak, that he had what to fear, not of being conquered, but of being harassed and being bothered and even being abused or bullied by Israel.
All right, so I will, okay, so I went to the next text, which is key for us because later on, there we go. Later on, this line right here is going to be very important to your argument. When I say right here, I don't know if you can see. Come now, curse them for me. Perhaps this is after he summoned Balaam. We just jumped ahead a little bit. He summoned Balaam, a professional weapon of mass destruction, a professional curser. And he says, curse them for me. Perhaps I will be able to overcome them and drive them out. This is the line that Rashi will comment later on in our conversation. Adonai, but here is another entrapment. Adonai said to Balaam, you will not go with them, you will not curse the people, they are blessed. This is just not fair. So the fear of the mob has trapped Balaam. Balaam has come to, trapped Balak. Balak has come to Balaam, giving him a commission, and then God interferes and says, no, you won't. And Balaam rose up in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, go to your land. Adonai refuses to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up and they went to Balak. They went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. And then we have, the narrative continues. He sent more princes, more and more honorable, better princes, more new and improved princes were sent. And they basically prevail upon Balaam to take the commission, even though he says it's not going to work. There's interference from another source. I actually never thought about it, but these princes are not having a good day either. They're being sent by the king, by the mob, to Balaam, and he's telling them there's really divine intervention here. This is not going to work. So we have all kinds of people really not having a good day. And he's trapped. And in a dream scheme, Adonai comes to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call, you rise up and go with them. That's not what I expect. But only the word which I shall say to you, you shall do. So Balaam rose up in the morning.
Rav Peretz, can we go back to that previous slide where Balaam had heard from God, don't go, and I will not let you curse them. And then Balaam answered the second group, and he says, but now I beg you, right? Or the previous, right? Now I beg you, remain you also here this night, that I may know what the Lord will say further to me. Now I admit, Peretz, that I am coming in with that midrashic, rabbinic, that bias. I'm out to get Balaam. I'll admit that. I have an agenda. But what do you say about Balaam? That how trapped is he really? Because why doesn't he just say, go away, go, God already told me I won't curse him, go away? Why does he give into this temptation and say, stay another night, let me find out what God really wants? Is that in praise of Balaam, or does it really indicate that there is this evil desire within Balaam?
Well, okay, so we're taking a kind of counterpoint, and I'm going to step in defense of Balaam. I'm wondering, are these princes armed, or more than that? If this is his profession to be a diviner or a charlatan or magician, but whatever, a blesser and a curser, and he's got these repeated delegations coming to him, there's no indication this is going to stop coming. Mm-hmm. They're not taking no for an answer. So maybe he's trying to control the situation because he's being controlled from within. He's being controlled by Hashem, and he's being controlled. He's really fighting. He's trapped inside and outside. He's got an inside voice in his dream saying, I'm in charge. Then there's an outside group coming from saying, we're in charge. And he's right in between. So I don't know where he has to go. Like, is he going to go to Brooklyn? I mean, I don't know what his options are. So maybe that's how I see it. That's why he says, wait, just everyone calm. It's almost like a family bar mitzvah meeting gone bad. How about we all come back on Tuesday? Just think about this. So that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, Peretz, I hear what you're saying, because the truth is, even in our own lives, sometimes we have a mitzvah that we think we're commanded. This is the law says, or this is what our tradition tells us to do. And then you're right, sometimes we have a push from the outside world to do something different. And initially we will say, well, our tradition says no. If we continue to get maybe moral and ethical push, where in this case it's not really moral and ethical, in this case it's a lot of money, or his job. But when we get continual pushback from the outside, you're right, we do look back at the tradition, and we don't all get a chance to speak to God or to hear God, but we do look back at our tradition and say, what does our tradition really say about it? So I hear what you're saying, Peretz. I will that Balaam is stuck, and he's trying to really run a dialectic, which is something that the modern Jew, as part of the modern world, really has to do. So I'm looking forward to see how Balaam works this out.
You know, the dangerous move is to emphasize politically, but I would think that Benjamin Netanyahu wakes up every day with multiple voices, inside, outside, all around. I have great sympathy for anyone who is a leader in Israel, modern Israel today, because they're not in dialogue, they're in multilogue with all kinds of voices. And so this might be the most relevant text of our time, especially then every once in a while some ass speaks. So let's get to our star. All right. So we've already been here. Oh, okay, hang on. Sorry, I hit a All right, I am. Okay, so we're here right now, and my own computer is getting a little tired. So let's see if I can get it to calm down. Come back to you. Huh. I have my screen. Well, you can see the text. For some reason, it's not moving right now. I'm stuck right here. I'm trapped. I'm trapped on this one text.
Very good. So do you want to read it to us, Peretz?
No, I fixed it. There we go. It's amazing. All the folks in New York can relax, I think. Okay, here we go. So okay, here we go. So the ass is trapped. And Balaam woke up in the morning and saddled his ass. This is very Abrahamic, by the way. Like, he gets up early in the morning. I have no idea if that's an allusion to Abraham waking up early in the morning, but it's just fun to say. And he went with the princes of Moab. Maybe there's just 3 of them. Who knows? Anyways, God's anger was kindled because he went. Explain this to me later. He's supposed to go, and now God's angry. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way as an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword was drawn in his hand, and the ass turned aside and went into the field, and Balaam struck the ass to turn it to the way. But the angel of the Lord stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall being on that side. By the way, this is a wild scene of fields turning into vineyards, walls popping out of nowhere. I'm in San Francisco. I would say they all dropped acid somewhere along the line, but we'll just leave that to the Kabbalah to handle. When the ass saw the angel of the Lord, it pushed itself into the wall, crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he struck her again. So now we have animal abuse, which in my neighborhood is a very dangerous move. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, it fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he hits it again. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times? And he said to the ass, "Because you have mocked me," which is the unusual attitude to take to an ass. "I wish there was a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you." And the ass said to Balaam, "Am I not your ass, upon which you have ridden ever since I was yours to this day? Was I ever wont to do so to you?" Well, no, I guess not. So we have a reflective moment, a dialogue at last between 2 people. Well, 1 person and a donkey. This is what it takes for the next line. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell on his face. And the angel Lord said to him, "Why did you strike your ass these 3 times?" This man gets no relief. He's getting it from basically his donkey below him and from God above him. This is just not fair.
Oh, well, Peretz, come on. First of all, I'm so sympathetic towards the ass, and this Balaam does not listen. Again, we talked about this dialectic that yes, we have the world around us, and then we have our tradition, but Balaam is not listening to God, and he's not listening to the simple things in life, to his ass, and he should have known that this is a loyal ass. And the truth is, this is like a loyal servant. This is like, lahavdil, to differentiate, but it's like a close friend, and a friend that's always been helpful to you. And we always hear about people that reject, out of some kind of passion or drive, they reject the advice of their friends. So here Balaam is rejecting the advice of God in a sense, and he's rejecting the advice of his ass, his close childhood friend. And one more thing, what makes this so tragic, and you're totally right about being entrapped, is that this ass should be leading the Moabite people, and he should be in charge, because the ass sees the angel, and instead our rabbis say that because the ass spoke as an animal, a lowly animal, spoke out against this Balaam, this human being, the ass had to be killed. I mean, it's an amazing Midrash, but it makes you so sad that this poor, beautiful being is trapped in this in this world and doesn't get the opportunity to really rein in Balaam.
Okay, that's a midrash we'll have to take up later of the basically donkey side. I don't think that's relevant to that's not really warranted by any degree. But I have to ask you, wait a second, back to the word of God basically saying to him, "Go and I'll tell you what to say." Now that's what he says to Balaam, "Go and I'll tell you what to say." And then God is angry that he goes, and then instead of saying to him what to say, he tells the ass what to say. Now, was this like a wrong number? Did he dial the wrong ass? Instead of Balaam speaking, the ass speaking? I don't know how to explain this.
Well, I wonder if it's similar to the binding of Isaac, where Abraham apparently hears God telling him to slaughter his son, and later, I guess one of the most brilliant midrashim says that Abraham says, "Wait a second, you told me to slaughter, then you said, don't slaughter your son. What's going on?" And God says, "I never really told you to slaughter your son. I said, bring him up on the mountain." Sometimes we really have to sometimes we hear the God that we want to hear. I think Abraham wanted to show his loyalty to God, and it's for a strange reason it spoke to him in that way. But I think it seems in this story that Balaam is hearing the God he wants to hear, and he's almost trying to mold God in his own image, based on his own desires. And so even though God tells him, it seems clear God doesn't want to go along with him, but he's not going to stop him, but he's not going to fulfill his mission. He's not going to be able to curse them. God says that clearly. And so if Balaam were really thinking logically, he would say, this is a doomed mission. I shouldn't go. But I really feel that Balaam, as a great prophet, is twisting the word of God.
Wait a second. Let's step back for a second. As Balaam as a prophet, when did he ask for this? How often has he heard God speak to him? He wakes up one day and he gets basically a message. "Hi, you have a commission from Balak. It's an easy one. Stand on a mountain and curse the people way down below you, and do your best. Just curse them." And all of a sudden, without any warning, he is hearing the word of God in his head. Now, I don't know how much prep he was given to deal with this. So in a very short time, he has two angry delegations from the king. He has God speaking to him with conflicting messages, and now his animal is talking to him. I think is a lot for someone to bear. He hasn't asked for this.
I hear you, Peretz. So remember, he had a reputation. He was known to be this great prophet. I mean, they only went to him because of the reputation that he built up. So it's
what? I don't see a resume in the text. I don't see anyone saying he's a great. It's just that's later. That's Midrash. You're just throwing Midrash. I'm sticking with the peshat. This guy wakes up one morning, and it's like all he did was answer the phone. Right? It's like, what if he simply was on vacation? Like, no, I'll delegate this to someone else. Balaam, the other cursor. Right? You've dialed Balaam. I'm on break. I'll call you back later. I once, when I was a congregational rabbi, I got a call from a fundraiser of an organization in San Francisco who said a very wealthy donor to her organization is coming to San Francisco and wants a rabbi to conduct a bar mitzvah for his son in the Hilton Hotel. Can you make this happen for me? And all I did was pick up the phone. Had I not answered, this new horrible situation, which was not going to get easily undone, would never have happened. So I have great sympathy for all I did was say, yes, what? How can I help you? And now I've got God in my head, a talking donkey, an angel holding a sword. I'm being crushed against a wall, and nothing I do is right.
It's tough. It's tough being a human being. It's tough being, and I think, but you're totally right. The fact that people are reaching out to us to talk to us, we have to rise to the challenge. That's what leadership is about, is knowing how much of an impact you can have and your responsibility. So I hear you. It's a tough day. Balaam's having a couple of tough days, but he's really got to realize that he has responsibility. The donkey is an animal and can speak his mind and leaves the scene. Human beings have a much greater responsibility.
Okay, so well put. So this is chapter 24, and now this is the famous chapter that we all know. And he took up his discourse and said, the speech of Balaam, the son of Beor, the speech of a man whose eyes are open, the speech of him who heard the words of God, who saw the vision of the Almighty falling down, having his eyes open. Ma tovu! How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, and your tabernacles, O Israel. And, well, we know this one. This is by tradition what we sing as we walk into the sanctuary or any gathering of the Jewish people, Ma Tovu. And we like it so much, we print it, we keep it, we hold it close. And then he seems to know a whole lot about, suddenly he seems to know a whole lot about the Israelite people. And you'd think this was the crowning episode. It doesn't go well. And Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he struck his hands together, and Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you blessed them these 3 times. So the folklorist in me is saying, all right, we have 3 times the repetition of 3 times. So clearly we're in a like, pay attention here. I hit you 3 times, I hit you 3 times, and now you bless them 3 times. You're fired. Flee to your place. I thought to promote you to great honor, but the Lord has kept you back from honor. That's always great to hear, by the way. That's just what everyone wants to hear from a boss. I was going to promote you, but because of something, maybe your conscience, I'm not going to. And Balaam said to Balak, did I not speak also to your messengers, which you sent me, saying? Basically, I'm only going to do what God tells me. I told you I'm only going to do what the Lord tells me, and that's what I did. So I was trapped, and I was told you I was trapped. And
it's amazing, Peretz, that again, in the Midrash, it's not there in the text, but it's implied that Balak, why did Balak bring in Balaam in the first place? So you could say, again, he had a reputation for doing this, but the rabbis in the Midrash say that Balak was a greater magician than Balaam. And, it seemed like Balak's great failing here is, not that he tried to fight the Israelites. There's sympathy for him. He feels threatened, and he's in some ways has what to base that fear on. But why didn't Balak think about doing it himself? Why didn't Balak use his own abilities? And instead he has to think that, I got to get a specialist from outside. In some ways, Balak really failed. He didn't rise to the challenge. Balaam, like you said, he's faced with all these pressures. He has to do what God says. I think really Balak, in clapping his hands together, he understands his own failure to really rise to the challenge and fight this people himself.
Well, it's a good, we've seen this so much in practice that authorities hire flunkies. Yeah. Because they don't want to. If I'll give it to you, that Balak maybe has some insight of his own, and he says, okay, these seem to be maybe divinely helped people. I'll get someone else to take the fall for me when this doesn't work. That we've seen that before. Maybe we'll go back to the text just for a moment, because this is where this might be the proof, or it may be a kind of a proof, where at the end of the very strange speech, it's actually too strange even to read the whole thing right now, but it's in the source sheet and it's on the screen. It's just this very puzzling speech it's just a mix-up of all kinds of things, the Kenites and the Amalekites and Edomites, but it ends with this one line, which is the most, to me, moving in a funny way, that Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balak also went his way. That it ends. It just kind of
Yeah. So what do you do with that, Peretz? What do you do with that ending? Because even I don't love this Balaam guy, and I have a lot, but he said such beautiful, beautiful words, and which we take in, we make our own, ma tovu. I always wonder why kids are taught ma tovu, like that's even more central than a lot of the other important prayers. But it's just amazing that Balaam is dismissed and cursed by our tradition. Again, that's later sources, but he's not given a place in the world to come by the rabbis in Tractate Sanhedrin. But so what is your take on this disappearance of Balaam from the scene?
Well, if you take it as the ultimate, like Moshe Rabbeinu, who's going to come up in Sifrei, when we get to Sifrei in a few moments, which we have to get to, that he's done. That maybe this whole thing was a setup that the Matovu was sung through Balaam, but it's really, as God said earlier, I'll tell you what to say. So we basically have, like God speaks through the ass, God speaks through Balaam, and we have this beautiful song. Fortunately, it wasn't sung through the ass. That would be more difficult to explain. But it was a vessel. And he sang it. He's done. And Balak is getting no more out of him. He's done. Balaam has no more to say. He's done. And maybe like Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's done, he's done. Maybe like for many of us, when we have nothing of worth more to say besides I love you and goodbye, we're done. And that's how I would see it, except for what you've compelled me to include next, because the Torah doesn't end here. Because
yes, let's see when the Torah brings him back in a couple of portions. Yes, chapter 31.
Yes, avenge the people of Israel the Midianites, and afterward shall you be gathered to your people. And Moshe spoke to the people, saying, arm some of yourselves for war. And we go to war against the Midianites in Midian, and they're at war. And there at the bottom of the page we see it. And they slew the kings of Midian. Beside the rest of them were slain Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, Reba, and the 5 kings of Midian, and Balaam, the son of Beor, they also slew with a sword. Now that's just not fair. How did that happen?
So Peretz, this is a mixture of really in the text and a little bit of background from the rabbis. So, in the text, it talks about this great sin that the Midianites, got the Israelites to do. It really was the Israelites' fault, but they sinned in the great sin of Baal Peor. And the truth is, it's another question. The Israelites were punished, but also the Midianites were punished. And the Midrash says that it was Balaam, that when Balaam failed in his mission to curse the Israelites, but and had these beautiful prophecies of Matovu, instead of going back and saying, look, God knows what's best. I bless the people beautifully. I don't feel good about it, but I'm leaving. I'm done. And maybe had he just done that, he would have had his great share in the world to come. He would have been known as the great author of these blessings. But instead, again, according to our rabbis, he's the one who advises Midian to seduce the Israelites. Now, it has all sorts of, seduction. It's a whole problem today. But in the reading of the Torah, it's really Balaam's last curse of the Israelites, which is successful to try to corrupt the Israelites. And I think that's maybe the tragedy. Here he could have been someone who could have been fulfilled an amazing mission and then left the scene. But instead, he had to do one more thing that ruins his reputation and that gets him killed along with the other kings.
Well, here's the text. And Moshe said to them, have you kept all the women alive? Because they did. Behold, these caused the people of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord. So it's not even Midrash. The peshat also is now maybe he's a different guy named Balaam. I don't know. I'd like to think this is Balaam Schwarzkopf as, not Balaam Levite. I don't know. It's another
No, but
no. Okay, fine. But
but what a tragedy.
But okay, so let's go. Then we have these other moves. Then we discussed this. We need to share this. That in the prophets, in the Nevi'im, Micah has this. Hear now what the Lord has said. Arise. This is from Micah 6:5. Arise, contend before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, O mountains, the Lord's controversy, and you, strong foundations of the earth, for the Lord has a controversy with his people, and he will contend with Israel. O my people, what have I done to you? And in what have I wearied you? Answer me. Which sounds kind of like the donkey complaining too. For I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I redeemed you from the house of slavery. I sent you before Moses, Aaron, Miriam. O my people, remember now what Balak, king of Moab, planned, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered him from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteousness of the Lord. This bounces back the other way. That is the evil planning of Balak. And the prophet says, and Balaam said, nope, God is righteous. You were silent here.
Yeah, I think about this maybe. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Peretz. I think about this mainly that, he's not. None of us are trapped. Even the ass is able to blurt out something. none of us are. Balak was not forced to hire Balaam, and Balaam, could have, followed God all the way, and realized at the end with the previous chapter 31 that God doesn't want to curse this people enough. And so, do you think that people entrap themselves? That there is a way of a human being getting out of things, even an animal, in a metaphorical way. But do you feel that Micah is saying that, Balaam could have really, and for a while really did follow God's ways, but entrapped himself and ultimately tried to destroy Israel in a different way, and so entrapped himself?
Well, we have that in Joshua. That Balaam, the son of Beor, was sent to curse you, but I was not willing to listen to Balaam. So that puts it in Balak deciding what not to listen to, which we all have the right to do. We can all not listen to bad advice. We have choice making. I think that it might be good in terms of time to make sure that we look at this a little bit from Sifrei, because you asked a profound question, and so maybe the profound question could be answered by someone much greater than I to answer the question, which is Abraham Joshua Heschel did not believe in the excuse of necessity. He felt that the word necessity was a coward's way of covering choice. When people say, well, this is necessary, we had to do this. And what they should say is, we chose to. We thought this out, and this is the choice we made. Where necessity gives you coverage. I had to do this. We had to fire you. We had to move. We had to do this, whatever thing that we did. We had to. And Heschel says, no. You chose to. This is God's terrible gift of freedom. This is how he understands Cain and Abel. This is how Heschel understands the assassination of his friend Martin Luther King Jr. It wasn't necessary, it was a choice. Someone chose. So we have that. Maybe we're looking at a story of choice making and then hiding behind necessity. I had to do this. The mob made me do it, Balak could say. Or Balaam would say, I had to do it. God made me do it. This is the common discourse of the human enterprise. Basically saying it was necessary instead of I chose. I may have chosen wrong, and I'm sorry, or here are the consequences, but I chose. So maybe what we have here, except for the ass, is a grand tale of irresponsibility. And the Midrash is trying to create lines of choice making, trying to figure out what was everyone thinking.
And Peretz, it's so beautiful. I think that that Sifrei, the greater you are, the more power you have, the greater is your responsibility to choose wisely. And I think the easier it is maybe to say, I was pushed into this. I was, the greatest prophet. I had to go when I was asked to prophesy, when I was asked to do that bar mitzvah. I just had to do it. And maybe you did it, which would have been a wonderful thing. But the greater ability God gives us, the more we have to constantly check ourselves, I agree, and say, remember, we are choosing this. This is not destined. And it's who knows what was the cutoff point for Balaam? Where was it that he went wrong? Was it just to corrupt the Jewish people with the sin of Baal, or was it earlier? But constantly we have to challenge ourselves. Oh, so we have this one more beautiful midrash.
Well, before you wait, Rashi.
It shows an attitude that our rabbis had towards
Asher, hold on.
Balaam and also towards Balak. And chapter 22, verse 11, we have the Balaam is talking to God.
Right.
Quoting Balak, but he changes what Balak said. Balak only said that there's a nation that has come and I want you to get rid of them. But Balaam says there's a people come out of Egypt which covers the face of the earth. Now curse them and chase them from the land. The gay rashtiv, the Hebrew is, I want you to drive them out. And yes, the Midrash says Balaam, in his own interpretation, his own emendation of Balak, is destroy the Jewish people, drive them out. But actually where we see the Balak said only, drive them out of the land. I just don't want them to bother me, but drive them, send them somewhere else. And I think this brings the point you had mentioned, Rav Peretz, that these are choices. Even when we're interpreting people's words, it was a choice that Balaam made to interpret Balak's words that way. And in a sense, perhaps the other way around. If Balak really only wanted to deal with the Israelites bothering him, maybe he could have handled it a different way than turning to Balaam. So it's really the Midrash, by using these slight word changes, min haaretz, from the land, or just v'gei rashtiv, really is in a sense, I think, empowering our choices and saying, notice that these different characters made choices, made interpretations that they didn't have to.
Well, what I got excited about a moment ago, and I'm glad you continued, is that this is a strange tale about people empowered. And in our own day, we have, in the lifetime of my own family, I think of my grandparents in Vilna, to my father, a veteran of World War II, to myself living in America. And in that time, we have the Shoah, the ultimate powerlessness of the Jewish people, and then the continued development of the Yeshuv, to the Jewish community in Eretz Israel, to Medinat Yisrael, to the state of Israel. And now we are grappling with, not to mention 3 Jews on the Supreme Court, and in California we have 2 Jewish women as senators. We are in this amazing position of real or not so real power. And so the choices we make have consequences beyond our imagining. We are, in many ways, we are what Chazal dreamt us one day to be, which is a free people with power over ourselves and over our environment. And with that comes choice making. And with that comes responsibility. And it can some way, maybe like Balak and Balaam, become overwhelming. That we feel trapped between 2 walls with a talking ass next to us. This could be the most relevant story of our time. That sometimes we cannot know if we can go forward or backwards. We know what God wants of us, and then we collapse to necessity, and we reflect, did I do really what I wanted, or did I do what I felt needed to be done?
That's beautiful, Rav Peretz, and when I say Ma Tovu Alecha in the morning, I will take comfort that there's so much good we can do, there's so much good we can choose to do. We just have to work on making that right choice. And in some ways, it's a tikkun. We're fixing, we're bringing Balaam back in a certain way, as much as he was chased out of this world and maybe the next world. Ma tavu alecha, we're bringing him back by maybe the good choices that we make.
Yeah, I don't see Congregation B'nai Balaam being set up anytime soon.
Okay.
But it might be worthwhile.
Yes. Yesher Koyach, Peretz. Wonderful to learn with you. Just beautiful.
Actually, I've thought even though we prepared for this little moment, I've actually listening to you defend Chazal and bring these forward. I've actually, okay, all right. We're wrestling. We're God wrestling all the way through time, up into our time. So I'm glad to meet to have dialogue with one of the Gedolim of my moment. I don't really know how we end this. I don't know if Lily's going to come in and questions. We didn't quite figure out how to say goodbye and good luck.
We had a little bit of a website crash. There was so much traffic to our website that the site is now down. So the only people watching right now are watching through YouTube. So this is a message for the future. If you're ever going to do an event for Jewish learning, be prepared for high traffic because people will come. So on that note,
that's amazing.
On that note, we won't actually have any questions from our online viewers because they can't get to the chat function. So, but you have asked many good questions of each other, and we shall continue to ask these questions of ourselves. Thank you very much for this wonderful Midrash. And that's our sign-off. Anything you'd like to add?
No,
I am just grateful for you guys putting up with my disastrous tech knowledge. So a big Yesher Koyach.
It's not half as bad as ours. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi Lopatin and Rabbi Peretz Wolf-Prusan. It's been such a pleasure, and we hope to see you both again very soon.
Terrific.
Bye-bye.
Yesher Koyach to everyone for their learning. Take care. Over and out.
All right.